Okay, back to the task at hand. We were just talking about figuring out the diameters, the cross section of these wires. If we really wanted to do that, like I said, you could go to the chart, you get one of these, the super calc. You know, if E.T. would have had one of these, he wouldn't have been running around in the forest eating Reese's Pieces. He would have been back home. These things are, I wished I had one of these when I was in school. Anyway, that's how we figure things out. Get the mechanical brain. Take advantage of our technology. But that's not what we're doing. We're still coming up with our material for making the trees. This is where we get it. I'm going to be cutting away from myself, of course. There's that. And yes, don't. Ooh, there's a piece of stuff. Don't do this on your Louis XIV coffee table. You will be in trouble. Alright, same thing. Take this, spin it, and there we go. Individual strands. And we'll add these to our other individual strands. By the time I get done with just these practice splicings, I'm going to have enough to make a tree. There's that. There's that. And I try to keep all these wires separate. A lot of times it doesn't work. Yeah, we're going to step up to a, done that size, to a larger size wire. And you'll notice that after we strip this one, that the individual wires inside are just a little bit larger. See, you see when I slip? I'm still not, unless there was somebody sitting over here, then I'd gouge them up. But right now I'm no danger to myself or anybody else. The only thing I'm endangering is this poor desk. There we go. Some of these wires, if you end up going this route, it's the route I choose because it's, you know, if it's free, it's for me. I could, as a matter of fact, this one cost, I don't know, it was $18. I think there's 500 feet. This is stainless steel, aircraft quality stainless safety wire. Of course, this stuff will be here even when the cockroaches are gone. The stainless wire lasts forever, but it's harder to cut. This is mild steel. This is like baling wire, which means it's probably not wire at all. It's a wire. It's used out on the farm. It's wire. It costs 67 cents for 500 feet. But it'll rust, turns colors. Alright, got this one. We're going to untwist it. Oh, this is one of those wires. This one has the core. I'm going to take the core out, save the core separate. They're actually wound counter to these. Say if this was a counterclockwise spiral on the core, then it'd be a clockwise twist on the wire around them. It gets kind of confusing when you're wiring on wiring, so I just keep the I just keep them separate. Sometimes they're a different cross section, a different diameter than the actual wire too, than the outer wraps. I'll take some of the waves out of them. See how it's wavy? Wavy. I'll take some of these out. I am going to be going over a couple other methods of getting the wire. They're actually easier, but they cost. Well, one isn't easier and it costs, one is easier. Okay, enough about that. If you want the free wire, you're going to go down to a local construction site and say, hey, can I get some wire? Or maybe you know some people in the trades and crafts, electricians, and say, hey, can you bring me home some of your stubs, some of your roll ends, some of the stuff you don't use? Okay. Or you're going to go out and buy wire like I have sometimes. It's only when I'm doing special stuff do I buy the wire. I like working with the copper wire because it's a little bit more forgiving, it's softer, it's malleable, easier to bend. This kind of wire is hard, stiff. Once it gets a kink in it, it's really kind of hard to get the kink out. When you get up to when you're working with larger diameter wires, like this is coat hanger like wire. It's out of a piece of, what is this, 3/0. This is 0.0 gauge wire. 4/0, 3/0. So it's 400 thousandths. Of course, 500 thousandths and half an inch. 400 thousandths, 3/8. That's more than 3/8. 7/16. It's a lot of wire. Big stuff. Run a factory with this. Probably the biggest wire in our houses. I don't even think our stove wire. This is the number 9, number 10 gauge wire. Yeah, we're using 12s or 14s in our stoves. That's big wire. Even for a house, for your air conditioner, for your stove. What were we doing? Oh, we're coming up with the individual strands. Where are we getting them from? Here's another way to do it. You get a block of wood, stick 3 nails in it, and I've got these 5.5 inches apart. This one's 2 3/4. That one looks like it's 2 1/4. 2 7/8. 2 1/4. Anyway, you can pretty much figure out if you wrap your wire around this what length of wire you're going to get. I think this is one of them right here. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is one off of it already. Look at that, 1 foot, 12 inches. We're going to go ahead and do this one. Of course, if you were wanting to end up with a trunk, tree trunk 1/2 inch around, how many wraps would you have to put around this thing? Ask the brain. Well, of course, it'll depend on how big a wire is. And when you buy these things, it usually says, unless you're buying wire, when you buy wire, it tells you on where the label was, what size wire, how many thousandths it is. When you're buying wire, it just says wire. This stuff is 40 thousandths. So we're going to want to turn it on. 0.4 divided by 0.5 is that many times. We're going to have to go around about 60 times. Wow. Boy, that's a lot of wraps. Clear, clear, clear. Clear off. There we go. But if the brain says 60 wraps, must be 60 wraps. And what we did was we took the diameter of the wire. How many of them equaled a 1/2 inch times 3.14, being pi, which would give us our diameter. So how many of these would go in a circle that big around? Gives us our surface area, and we divided one into the other. So 60 wraps around this thing with this wire. And I don't have 60 wraps worth of wire left on there. But I'll go ahead and get it started just so we can see it. Putting my first wrap around the nail. I'll peel off a couple of feet. Let's start at 55. 55, 56, 57, 58. Oops. 59, 60. So we cheat. Remember, the steel wire is a lot tougher than the copper wire, and a lot of your pliers are going to say side cutters right on them, use on copper wire only. This happens to be a better pair that you can use on steel and copper. Of course, you can't use them on really hard steel, or it's going to leave a divot in your cutting surface. For instance, these little baby ones, they say for copper only. So I can go cutting little pieces of copper. Of course, probably should have safety glasses on for this. Bing! Bing! Wow! You could put somebody's eye out like that. These are for copper only. If I went to cut a paper clip or a piece of this wire, and definitely, if I went to cut a piece of that stainless wire, it'd leave a gouge in my cutting blades, which is very non-desirable. Okay, I'm gonna put this underneath it. You can only imagine that I wrap this thing up 60 times. I'm telling you, this is not my favorite way of deriving wire for my project. I'll show you another way. It's deceptively similar, but it's just a little bit easier. At least it's easier for me. You know, there's going to be 100 different ways of doing this. If you get with your friends, they're going to say, well, they do it this way, or so-and-so does it that way. And it just boils down to what's easiest for you, what you like the best. Okay, now then what I'm going to do is cut this off. Ouch. And there I go. So we're imagining that I wrapped it around 60 times and that this is a 1/2 inch diameter bundle. Of course it's not. And we got this by wrapping wires around this. I'll show you a different way here in a minute. One of the reasons I don't like doing it that way, maybe if I had bigger nails, so I'd get a more of a radius on my where it goes around the nails, because it leaves kinks in the wire, and I like to have fairly straight wire when I start a project. It's more desirable for me. And then I've got these kinks up here that it left. And those kinks are really hard to get out. And I only have 5 or 6 of them here. How many times did I actually wrap that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went around those nails 6 times. You can imagine if I did this 60 times and I had a bundle that big around, I'd have a kink in there that looked kind of like that. It'd be hideous. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on this one too long. This is the wrap the wire around the nails on a piece of wood. Of course, let me go back. Here's another one I did. You can see the kinks in those things. It's, you know, that's why we're showing different ways of doing this. If we wanted a longer or taller tree, we would get a longer board and stick the nail out here. That would, of course, give us a longer length. We want more diameter, more wraps, less diameter, less wraps. The board method. Shall we recap? The board method. The scrap method, getting scrap from down the road. Now then, my favorite semi-board method is the bowl method. And what we're going to use is of course we've got these. This is a what is this? Yogurt, cottage cheese, butter. You've got 6 of these in your refrigerator at any one time. I know I've probably got a dozen of these things in the refrigerator. But these things, of course, this is probably little cottage cheese. This is, no, it's not country crock, it's wrong color. You know, but you get what I'm talking about. Bowls, plastic bowls, easy. They all have a nice little taper to them. That's important. Here we go. Where is our scrap? Here's one of our scraps. The bottom of our hose clamps. These are, of course, the scraps, the roots off some of the other trees that we've made. This will give us something to hold everything together. Holding it there with my thumb. I'll go ahead and use the stainless steel super safety wire on this one, and it's going to be the same thing. I'm not going to wrap this thing around 60 times, but put that under my thumb also, and then start wrapping. Let's see, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. And of course, if it was 60 times, that thing would be a big 1/2 inch wad. This, my little copper extra end there. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little squeeze, just so when I let everything go here that my wire doesn't unbundle itself. There we go. And unlike the pulling it off the nails, this one just kind of slides right off the end, and you end up with a pretty nice bundle, actually. And of course, if you want a bigger tree, where's the end of that thing? I'm going to go ahead and use it. Remember, bigger diameter, bigger bowl, depending on how big of a tree you want. Okay, because of course, figure part of it's the roots. Oh man, this stainless is some tough stuff. Oof. And I don't have as big a kinks in this, since I rolled it around a round surface. Nice, evenly radiused. There we go. See? But we're back to the basics of what we're trying to do. We're either going from this and generating a whole bunch of individual strands. We're going from this, same thing, generating individual strands. This size, I'm going to go ahead and cut up one of these. This is a, what is this, 8 or a 4? A 3 gauge. And of course, the bigger the wire, the larger the individual strands. Like this one, what do we call this? This one was another 40 thousandths. So this is the same as that. Stainless copper. We're still coming up with individual strands. And this, I found that much easier, that wrapping around a bowl or a bucket. Let's see, a 4-inch bucket, 12-inch diameter. Let's see, what's this one? It's a 5.5-inch bucket, 17-inch diameter. So you'll end up with a 17-inch tall tree, or maybe a 15-inch tall tree because your roots are going to be a couple inches, your trunk is a couple inches, your roots go out at right angles from the trunk, so that takes off the height of the tree. You can see that in this example. The roots go off at a right angle. And what we're going to do now is we're going to strip one of these larger ones. We're going to add the wire to one of our existing bundles, and we're going to put the hose clamp on and show what we do with that. Anyway, more wire, bigger bowl. And you got these, I know you do. Don't need nails, don't need a board. Don't need one of these. Hey, why'd the guy hit himself in the head with a hammer? Because it felt so good when he stopped. Let me tell you, you need lots of patience for this kind of stuff. But remember, once I usually get, for instance, once I get this far, once I actually strip the wires and make my big mess outside, then I'll go inside, plop myself down in front of the TV, not that I would do that, and watch the Discovery Channel, hands-on history, the history of wire making, and I'll sit in front of the TV and untwist these things. Because this is something I can do where I don't really have to pay attention to what I'm doing, and I can half pay attention to the TV, half pay attention to what I'm doing, and actually get a couple of things done at the same time. I'm multitasking. Uh-oh. Commercial break. Where'd that soda go? Pepsi or Coke? Pepsi, yeah, I thought so. Ouch. I did that on purpose. Okay. So let's give our number 3 a chop. And this is something that I probably wouldn't say let your kids do, unless you were helping them and supervising the stripping of the wire. And that, for instance, maybe that kind of wire be already stripped and ready to go would be a better project. Ouch. Pardon me. Ouch. There we go. And now that it's, you can see what I'm doing there. See that? I can't see that. Stripped it where the copper's showing, and then it just pops right out. This, of course, is your THHN, which is the hard plastic gasoline-proof type of insulation. The other stuff that I was chopping up was this. This was number 10, and it's that soft wire, locomotive wire, pretty high voltage, thick, soft insulation. You have SO cord, which is pretty much like, I don't know, extension cords. It's also, this is huge SO cord, but it has a soft, really soft insulation. It's really pliable. Very adaptive. This, of course, is that super hard stuff, and you could use this as a weapon. It is a weapon. Anyway, I'll strip this here in a minute too. After I unravel this, strip this, then we're going to go out into the garage and start twisting on trunks. Did I tell you that sometimes they lube these things up and not to even worry about that? That when they put these together, some of these copper wire companies put some kind of goop in these things. It's I don't know if it cuts down on the friction when they're putting these things together, or if it's just some kind of conductivity material that helps these things bond and conduct electricity better. Who knows? You'll open these things up and it's got this jello goop inside it. It's not going to hurt you. It's just kind of annoying when you start to work with the wires. This stuff will turn your hands dirty and green if you work with it long enough. Eek. But it's not that bad. it washes off. Okay, we've straightened that one out. Put that one over here because I'm going to add it to the larger bundle that we're going to take out into the garage and twist here in a minute. Okay, this is the SO cord. This is some of that really pliable stuff. This is what the SO cord looks on the inside. The one that we took apart was one multi-conductor strand. This one is going to be 6 wrapped around, no, 5 wrapped around 1. So it ends up being 6 conductors in one insulation, but 6 multi-stranded conductors. We'll show you. Here we go. We'll strip this one off of here. Well, that's awful bright, isn't it? There we go. See, this one, we're going to spin it backwards. And you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, 6, 7. So it was 6 wrapped around a core of 1. And each one of those, of course, has a bunch of individual strands, and that's what we're trying to get down to. We're taking these things all the way apart till we're down to just the individual strands. I'm not going to go any farther with that one. We're going to get back to the one with the hose clamp around it. And the reason we put the hose clamp around these is because as you're working with it, it's going to want to come loose. Which is something else. Let me back up a little bit here. Now that we've pretty much figured this one out. It's the this is how you get down to the individual strands, by stripping the wire, unraveling the wire, but we're breaking it down into its individual strands. I'll tell you what, it's getting kind of bright out here. I can see that I'm shiny and everything else isn't. Let's take a break here for a second.